And we'll just go right into the purport. Such a person must factually know the greatest of all, the personality of Godhead, who is unembodied, omniscient, beyond reproach, without veins, pure and uncontaminated, the self-sufficient philosopher who has been fulfilling everyone's desire since time immemorial. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Here is a description of the transcendental and eternal form of the absolute personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is not formless. That means He has a form. This is called in English a double negative. Whenever you see a double negative, the two negatives cancel each other out. It's a positive, right? So when it says not formless, formless is a negative, not is a negative. That means He has a form. He has His own transcendental form, which is not at all similar to the forms of the mundane world. The forms of the living entities in this world are embodied in material nature, and they work like any material machine. So this is a verse, as we said yesterday, from Bhagavad Gita, 1861. The anatomy of a material body must have a mechanical construction with veins and so forth. But the transcendental body of the Supreme Lord has nothing like veins. It is clearly stated here that He is unembodied, which means that there is no difference between His body and His soul. Okay, so we see that whenever there's a description of the Lord as that seems negative, it actually means positive. So when it says the word shukram, when it says akayam, which means unembodied, that does not mean He has no body. It means that His body is not like our body. Our body is different than our soul. His body and His soul are non-different. That's what it means. The Mayavadis, of course, take it in the negative sense, that if He has no body, that means He has no body. But that's not what the Vedas are saying. The Vedas are saying it doesn't have a body like ours, which is different than our soul. His body and His soul are not different. The anatomy of a material body must have a mechanical construction with veins and so forth. But the transcendental body of the Supreme Lord has nothing like veins. It is clearly stated here that He is unembodied, akayam, which means that there is no difference between His body and His soul. Nor is He forced to accept a body according to the laws of nature, as we are. In materially conditioned life, the soul is different from the gross embodiment and subtle mind. Now, so there are two bodies. There's the covering the soul of every human being. There's the gross body, which is made up of earth, water, air, and fire. Bhumir, apo, nalo, vayu. Kam, mano, buddhire, vacha. And then the subtle body is made up of? Okay, one at a time. Raise your hands. Go ahead. What do you say? Yes. So, what dies at death? Yes. Does the subtle body ever die? What? What did you say? I asked if the subtle body dies. Yes. Is it eternal? So then answer the question, does the subtle body die? Huh?
If we are in the material world, subtle body travels with the soul in the new body. When you leave this material world, you move to spiritual world, then the subtle body remains there.
Subtle body dies.
Dies.
Yeah. Now, what carries the soul from one body to another at death? The subtle body. What is the subtle body made of? What? Right. So that subtle body is the repository of what? Desires. Unfulfilled desires. And the laws of karma, plus the unfulfilled desires, forces a person to take birth again in the material world. And the soul is carried by the subtle body to the next body that corresponds to the types of karmic reactions they deserve from the previous life, plus their unfulfilled material desires. Now, when do those unfulfilled material desires awaken in the mind of the person in the next life? Anybody know? Yes? Yeah, what does puberty mean? Huh? No. What does puberty mean? When does puberty take place?
Puberty means when your central organs getting activated.
When you're how old?
Like around 12, 13 years.
Yes. When you reach, let's say, adolescent life, around 12, 13 years old, all of a sudden, children begin, they don't even know why, but their desires from previous lives awaken. And sometimes the Americans described it as young girls and young boys' hormones go crazy. Right? Okay, so it is clearly stated here that He, meaning the Supreme Lord, is unembodied, which means that there's no difference between His body and His soul. Nor is He forced to accept a body according to the laws of nature, as we are. In material conditioned life, the soul is different from the gross embodiment and subtle mind. For the Supreme Lord, however, there is never any such difference between Him and His body and mind. He is the complete whole, and His mind, body, and He Himself are all one and the same. So, the typical question that could be asked in a test would be, explain, based on Mantra 8, the fundamental differences between the ordinary living entity and God. So, number one is sukham, which means that, number one, well, yes, sukham is number one. He is omnipotent, and we have limited power. He has, omnipotent means He has unlimited powers, right? And then akayam, His body is different than our body. First of all, His body and His soul are non-different. He's not forced to take birth in a body like we are, because He's not subject to the laws of karma. His body is not made of muscles, bones, veins. His body is made of Sat Chit Ananda. Our material body is made of all these horrible materials like muscles, veins, and things like that. And okay, so, and he's not subject to the laws of material nature as our body is. Our body runs like a machine that's subject to the laws of material nature. So the Lord is the complete whole, and his mind, body, and he himself are all one and the same. Whereas we have two material coverings of the soul, the gross body and the subtle body. And both of those are different than our soul. Okay? So now we covered two differences. One is called Sukham. Lord is omnipotent. We are limited. Two is Lord is Akayam. He does not have a material body like we do. And along with that, that means he's not subject to the laws of material nature. His body is made of Satchitananda. Our body is made of earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. In other words, two bodies covering the soul, a subtle body and a gross body. Okay. In the Brahma Samhita, Lord, he is described there as Satchitananda Vigraha. So you probably all know the verse where he's described like that. There is a similar description of Ishwara Sarvabhutanam Satchitananda Vigraha Anadir Adir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. Right? He is described there as Satchitananda Vigraha, which means that he is the eternal form fully representing transcendental existence, knowledge, and bliss. Notice it says eternal form. So the Mayavadis describe God as Satchitananda. Is there something, you can't have a class with the children playing like this. Now if you want to play with them, that's okay. You go outside in the classroom and play with them. Right or wrong with this? Yes? Okay, now look, it's okay, you can do that, but don't encourage them to play in the class. Okay. Right. Yeah. So the Mayavadis just say they refer to the Lord as Satchitananda. They never say Vigraha. What does that mean? Exactly right. Exactly right. As such, he does not require a separate body or mind, as we do in material existence. The Vedic literature clearly states that the Lord's transcendental body is completely different from ours. Thus, he is sometimes described as formless. So, why would we refer to the Lord as formless? He doesn't have a material body like we do. It doesn't mean he has no form, right? This means that he has no form like ours and that he is devoid of a form we can conceive of. Yeah, we can't conceive that he has a form that is Satchit Ananda Vigraha. Why? Because Atmavan Manyate Jagat. We project our limited existence onto the Lord. We have a form that's made of material elements. Therefore, we just assume that he does too, if he appears in a form. Right? You see why? Yes. Manyate jagat.
Everyone thinks of others according to his own condition.
Yeah, according to his own limitations, according to his own body, so forth. The example is given of the frog in the well. When the frog in the well hears about the Pacific Ocean, he tries to measure it in his mind in terms of the size of his well. He can't imagine how big it is, actually.
My question is, we do this thing on everyday basis, not by even thinking of the law. Even we, suppose I am thinking as a friend.
Yes.
I look at his clothes, I look at his everything around him and think of what each material is.
According to yourself.
Yeah, according to myself.
Yes.
So,
Just like one time I was talking to my grand auntie, and we were talking about religion, because she used to take me to church every Sunday. So we would just talk. I was just a little kid. So, but when I was getting a little bit older, one day I was talking to my grand auntie, and I said, you know, Jesus is not Armenian, because she had told me he's Armenian. She said, no, that's not true. He's Armenian. I said, no, I read that he was born in a Jewish family. He said, no, that's not possible. He's Armenian. That's called Atma Manyate Jagat. So, I didn't argue with her, but I was a little confused. I think I was only like 10 years old at that time. But I had read somewhere that he was born in a Jewish family, but she had told me that, no, he's Armenian. And then when I put it up to her, she said, no, that's not possible. He's Armenian. How we should think. Well, that's why we're reading this. This is showing us how to think. How many times does he say formless means? Does not mean he has no form. It means he doesn't have a form like us. How many times have we read it here in one paragraph? About 6 times already. He's saying it in different ways. So it sinks in that when it says, the Vedas say he doesn't have a form, it doesn't mean he has no form. It means he doesn't have a form like us. Okay? Yes.
And day-to-day activity, how to overcome this thing. There we are reading about God, Krishna.
Yeah.
But in day-to-day life,
You have to become humble. You have to become humble, not humbug. You become humble, and non-envious. If you're envious, just like Prabhupada tells the story, there were 2 men, and they were talking, and one man said to the other, he said, hey, you remember Billy? He said, Billy? He said, yeah, he was in elementary school. He said, yeah, he just became a Supreme Court judge. I said, no, I don't believe it. He said, yeah. He said, well, the guy was an idiot. He said, well, he's a Supreme Court judge. So I bet he's not taking any salary. That's why they made him Supreme Court judge. You see? Because there's envy involved, right? Therefore, why do we see everything in terms of ourselves? Because we can't imagine anyone greater than ourselves. And if we hear that someone's greater than ourselves, then we make up some story. He's doing it for free. That's why they hired him as a Supreme Court judge. Of course, that's ridiculous, right? Yeah. But this goes on all the time. Yeah. And there was once a man. He went to a farmer, and he wanted to buy the donkey of the farmer. So the farmer said, okay. And he said, how much you want? He said, give me 100 pieces of gold. He said, why? He said, this is not an ordinary donkey. A very special donkey. It's a male, and you can have hundreds of donkeys with this donkey. He said, okay. So he gives him 100 pieces of gold. Then the day comes when he's supposed to deliver the donkey. He comes and sees the buyer, and the buyer said, okay, I'm glad you're here, but where's the donkey? He said, oh, I'm sorry to tell you this, the donkey died. He said, he died? He said, yeah. Okay, give me my money back. He said, no, I can't give you money back. I already spent it. I said, well, that's not fair. He said, I'm sorry. He said, so okay, then give me the dead donkey. He said, what are you going to do with the dead donkey? He said, that's my business. Just give me the dead donkey. So he delivers some dead donkey to him, right? So then he said, what are you going to do with the dead donkey? He said, look, that's my business. You mind your business. I gave you the money, right? He said, yes. I said, okay, you should be satisfied with it. So then he starts a raffle. You know what a raffle is? Yeah, a lottery. For the donkey. And he sells 500 tickets. Let's say he paid $100, not 100 pieces of gold. Paid $100, right? So he issues 500 lottery tickets, $2 a piece. And the day comes and one guy wins, right? So when he comes to get the donkey, he said, look, something happened to the donkey, he died, but he said, I'm going to give you $2 back, and I'm going to give you extra. I'll give you $98 more. The guy said, oh, okay. He said, but on one condition. He says, what's that? Don't tell anyone the donkey died. I said, no, I'm not going to tell anyone, because he just made $100, right? He can go buy any donkey he wants now, right? So years go by. One day the farmer comes to see him and says, hey, he said, I've been thinking about something for a long time. He said, why did you buy that dead donkey? I mean, why did you take the dead donkey from me? He said, well, he said, I really don't want to talk about it. I said, now, come on, tell me. He said, well, I raffled it off. He said, you raffled it off? He said, yeah. I said, well, was anybody dumb enough to buy a ticket? He said, well, I didn't tell him the donkey was dead. He said, really? He said, yeah, I sold 500 tickets for $2. I made $1,000. He said, no, well, what about the guy who won the donkey? He said, well, when he came, I gave him $100 to keep quiet. He said, wow. He said, I can't believe it. He said, yeah. And then I went into politics. I became an elected official. Because that's what they do. They bribe people. Say. So, see, in material life, there's constant deception going on, right? Right? All the time. Every time. And why is it? Because, you know, people have material desires, and they're willing to lie and cheat and do anything and create deception, right? So, ultimate deception is when the Mayavadis say that the Lord is Nirakar, Nirguna, right? The same words are used to describe Krishna, but there's a different meaning for it in the Vedas. It just means he's not like us. Our body is different than our soul. His body is not different, so we can't say he has a body like we do. So the way the Vedas say it is Nirguna. He doesn't have material qualities like ours. His qualities are spiritual. Or Nirakar. His body is not like our body. It's a transcendental body. And there's no difference between his body and his soul. Now, there's another thing. In the Brahma Samhita 532, it says that Angani it says Angani yasya sakalandriya vrittimanti yasyanti panti kalyanti chiram jaganti ananda chinmaya rasa patibhavitavis govindamari purusham tamaham bhajami. It says that the Lord is not like us. He has a transcendental body, and his senses can do the function of all the other senses. Each sense can do the function of all the other senses. So he can eat with his eyes, see with his ears, and so forth. So now it's saying that he is devoid of a form which we can conceive of. In the Brahma Samhita 532, it is further stated that with each and every part of his body, he can do the work of the other senses. This means that the Lord can walk with his hands, accept things with his legs, see with his hands and feet, eat with his eyes, etc. Well, here's another major difference, right? And it's all that is under the heading of akayam. That is, he's unembodied, right? He has a... these points are confirmed in this eighth mantra through the use of the words like Sukham, omnipotent. And omnipotent means he can do anything with any part of his body. We can't do that. And Akayam, he does not have a body like ours. The Lord's worshipable form, Archa Vigraha. Now, what does Archa Vigraha mean? The deity form. What is Archa Vigraha? It's form made according to the Vedic knowledge that describes the transcendental form of the Lord, but it's made with material elements, such as marble or wood or paint or whatever, right? So this is called Archa Vigraha. And the Lord's worshipful form, Archa Vigraha, which is installed in temples by authorized acharyas who have realized the Lord in terms of Mantra 7. Mantra 7. Which is Yasmin sarvani bhutani atmeva vijanataha tatra ko maha kahasoka ekatvam anupasyataha. This mantra says that one who sees all living entities as eternal spiritual sparks in quality one with the Lord becomes a true knower of things. What then can be illusion or anxiety for him? Okay, so it says here, who have realized the Lord in terms of Mantra 7 is non-different from the original form of the Lord. So, we have a form, right? Although our form is different than our body, but in a sense, we're made in the image of God, right? So, Krishna has 2 arms, 1 head. It's not like Brahma with 4 heads, right? Or Brahma, there are Brahmas that have 1 million heads also, depending how complicated the universe is that they're in. And 2 legs, and and the Tribhanga, 3 bending form, holding the flute, and so forth. So, but his form is different than our form. And the deity form, the Archa Vigraha, is made according to the description of the Lord's form in the authorized scriptures. The Lord's original form is that of Sri Krishna. Well, ete chamsa kalak pumsa krishnastu bhagavan swayam indriyari vyakalam lokam murdayanti yuge yuge. Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st canto, what is it? 2nd chapter something. 3rd chapter, I'm sorry, 3rd chapter, verse, I don't know, what is it, 10 or 11 or something like that. Okay, so that means, let's see here. You see how every line, almost every word is a verse, refers to a verse. Ete chamsa kalak pumsa krishnastu bhagavan swayam. 1:328, yeah. Your computer is a little faster than my book. I know. It's on your computer. I had to go to my book. You beat me by 1 second. The Lord's original form is that of Sri Krishna, and Sri Krishna expands himself into unlimited number of forms, such as Baladev, Rama, Nishinga, Varaha. All of these forms are one and the same personality of Godhead. So if you say, oh no, Varaha is different than Krishna, or Ram is different than Krishna. You're committing aparad. They're all the same person. Just like Sanjay can dress up like a punk rocker tomorrow night and come here, and someone will say, no, that's not Sanjay, it's some punk rocker. No, it's Sanjay, right? He just dressed up differently, right? You see? So that's called the masked man fallacy. The masked man fallacy. The fallacy is to think that because Sanjay got dressed up as a punk rocker, he's a different person. Fallacy means something that is not true, right? It's just because he put a mask on doesn't mean he became a different person, right? Okay. Similarly, the Archa Vigraha worshipped in temples is also an expanded form of the Lord. Well, that's why you should not refer to them as an idol. If you're referring to the deity as an idol, you're committing an offense. It's an aparad. By worshipping the Archa, and if you want to say that's not an idol, it's Archa Vigraha, form of the Lord, which is non-different than the Lord, according to Shruti, according to the Shastra. By worshipping the Archa Vigraha, one can at once approach the Lord, who accepts the service of a devotee by his omnipotent energy. Okay, so now we come back to Sukham again. Because he has omnipotent, or let's say, infinite energies, he can appear in the Archa Vigraha form and not be non-different than himself. That's the meaning of omnipotent. Omnipotent means all-powerful. He can do things we can't do. Right? Again, if you don't accept that the Lord is Sukham, omnipotent, you remain an atheist. All these things, you read it and say, I don't believe all this. Atmaman manyate jagat. No, he's got to be like me. No. Yeah. They're known as, well, how do you refer to a baby that's not born? Huh? A what? A what? Oh, neonatal. No, neonatal means it's just born. Yeah. See, that's what happens when English is your second language. As soon as you get tested on fine points, you start making mistakes. That's why you come to the class, because you don't only learn Bhagavad Gita, or you also learn finer points. Look it up. Neo means new. Huh? Well, look it up. Look it up. And just double check and make sure what I'm saying is right. Neo, N-E-O. So, what would you refer to a baby? It would be an unborn baby. So, what would you refer to the Archa Vigraha that haven't performed the pranpratishta? There is some name in Sanskrit. I don't know what it is, but it's not unborn, but unmanifested yet in its real form. Well, I don't know. I mean, we can look it up. I don't know exactly what the Sanskrit term is. Sculptor. Yeah, he sees it, but we don't see it. He sees it. Yeah. Yes. Again, it's a philosophical issue. How you see. Yeah, because if the sculptor is a devotee, he can see the Lord even in the stone, even though the stone is unformed. I mean, it has a natural form, but not the form of the deity. Yeah. So you wouldn't say he's unborn, but he's not. It's not fully manifest yet. Yeah. What does neo mean? What? Yeah. No, neo means new. The prefix neo means new, right? Yeah. Okay. So, why does Krishna appear as the Archa-vigraha? In order to, so that we can see that our offerings are being accepted by the Lord. He's there to accept our offerings. Right? That's why in India, when people go to temples, right? What do? They bring something. Some fruit, some milk. And they don't bring steaks and hamburgers, because Krishna doesn't accept it, right? So they bring things because it's the custom. But why? Because the purpose of the deity is to accept our offerings. So you see that it's being accepted by the Lord. The Archa-vigraha of the Lord descends at the request of the acharyas, the holy teachers, and works exactly in the original way of the Lord by virtue of the Lord's omnipotence, sukham. If he wasn't omnipotent, he couldn't accept in the form of the deity. But because he's omnipotent, he can accept your offerings in the form of the deity. Foolish people who have no knowledge. So look how much time he's spending on this. One word. Actually, there are two words, right? Sukham, omnipotence, and akayam, no form like ours. He's spending it, but mainly on sukham, on omnipotence. Foolish people who have no knowledge of Isopanisad or of any other Shruti mantras, or original mantras of the Vedas, spoken by the Lord himself. Consider the Archa-vigraha, which is worshipped by pure devotees, to be made of material elements. This form may be seen as material by the imperfect eyes of foolish people or kanishta adhikaris. Kanishta adhikaris, lowest level of devotees. They're still devotees, but their faith is not strong. They can get easily confused. Their understanding of Shastra is very weak. And they only see the deity in the temple. They don't see the deity outside the temple. And the other thing is, they can also be, a kanishta adhikari can be pujaris. A pujari who respects the deity but doesn't respect other people, that's kanishta adhikari pujari. That's explained in Bhagavad Gita. Let's see. Devotee. Let's see. 9th chapter, 11th verse. Bhagavad Gita says, so it says, 9th chapter, 11th verse, near the end. It says, Jiva Goswami, commenting on this verse, says that Krishna, in his plenary expansion as Paramatma, is situated in the moving and the non-moving entities as the Supersoul. So any neophyte devotee, who's a neophyte devotee? What's the Sanskrit word for a neophyte devotee? Yes? Yes. Is that what you're going to say? Sanskrit? Okay. Any neophyte devotee or kanishta adhikari who simply gives his attention to the Archamurti, Archamurti means the deity in the temple, the form of the Supreme Lord in the temple, and does not respect other living entities, is uselessly worshiping the form of the Lord in the temple. Uselessly worshiping the form of the Lord. So a pujari who only respects the deities but doesn't respect other people because they can't see that the same deity is in the heart of every living entity. That is a person who is uselessly worshiping the form of the Lord in the temple. There are three kinds of devotees of the Lord, and the neophyte is in the lowest stage. The neophyte devotee gives more attention to the deity in the temple than to other devotees. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur warns that this sort of mentality should be corrected. A devotee should see that because Krishna is present in everyone's heart as Paramatma, every body is the embodiment or the temple of the Supreme Lord. So as one offers respect to the temple of the Lord, he should similarly properly respect each and every body in which the Paramatma dwells. That means the ants, the plants, the tiger, the worm, the Zika virus. Okay, who knows what the Zika virus is? Yes. Yeah, they're impaired for life. It's a new, well, it's not a new disease. It was existing in Africa, but the African mosquitoes have now spread to South America and to Mexico, and now they've entered the United States. So the disease does not affect adults or children. It only affects pregnant women. It's a virus. And their child is born with an underdeveloped skull. And there's already 4,000 children born like this. And the mosquito is also in Southeast Asia, which means it'll be in India soon. Right? So it's another, it's like Ebola, like AIDS, another scourge on humanity because they're too sinful. So they've just announced in South America, women should put off getting pregnant for the next 4 years until they find a vaccine for it. So now women are scared to get pregnant. And then some of them get pregnant anyway. So then they have to put all kinds of things on their body, even though, by the way, this mosquito exists only in tropical areas. So in the colder places, like Canada, probably cannot proliferate.
There's no mistake to such tremendous enjoyment.
People are freaked out. Women are
so
freaked
what
out
is the
in
immediate
South
cause
America. They don't know what
of vegetative growth? Yeah. Is it immediate?
It's not a nice place in material worlds, right?
Type of
some little mosquito
latent,
bites you, your kid is born deformed.
Did only by hearing.
Sammamish? Oh, not Sammamish, just this temple, 1420 228th Avenue. Yeah, but the secret hasn't been let out.
Future generations.
There's only a handful of people here.
Thank you for listening to me carefully and with attentive
right.
attention.
That's all right, because Manusyanam Sahasresu Kaschit Jatati Siddhaya Jatatam Api Siddhanam Kaschit Mam Veti Tatpataha. You know what that means? 3rd chapter.
We still have
I'm sorry,
the
7th
original
chapter,
Gopal
yeah.
Garden kids at
What's it
Synergy,
mean?
which they started. Please stand up whoever had studied in Gopal's Garden.
Yeah, out of thousands and millions of them, hardly one knows me in truth. Right? So it's a rare thing to be genuinely Krishna conscious. Very rare. That's why Prabhupada gives the example of a person who wants to buy a diamond. He said, first of all, there are not a lot of people that want to buy a precious diamond because they can't afford it, right? I mean, you can get one of these Walmart diamonds, right? It's like you need a microscope to see it, right? It's so small, right? And then you find out it's not a real diamond; it's zircon. It's a artificially made diamond that looks something like a diamond, right? But you get a real diamond, and big enough. I had an auntie. Her nickname was Diamond because she had a big marriage diamond ring, right? So wherever she'd go, she'd say, "Hello, how are you today?" You know, I mean, she was crazy, you know. If she'd show her diamonds everywhere, so they nicknamed her Diamond. She was nuts. When she died, they buried her with the diamonds. Yeah, that's how crazy she was. Okay. See, reality is more bizarre than fiction. Much more bizarre than fiction, you know. Okay, so in the Bhagavad Gita, 9th chapter, 11th verse, right near the end of the purport. It's a long purport. A devotee, however, should see that because Krishna is present in everyone's heart, this Paramatma, every body is the embodiment or the temple of the Supreme Lord. So this is how to see. You should see every body. It could be the ant, the tree, the deer, the tiger, the worm, the snake, is actually a moving temple or a stationary temple. The plants are stationary. Human beings, animals are moving. You know, not that you say, like this, you go up to the tiger and say, accept my obeisances, you know. Just put your head down on the tiger, he bites your head off. No, but you should respect the tiger in the sense that, you know, Krishna is in the heart of the tiger, right? In the Bhagavad Gita 9, 11, and 12, the Lord regrets the fallen condition of men with little knowledge who deride him because he descends like a man into this world. Well, avajananti mam mudha madasantanam asrita param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheswara, right? Fools deride me when I descend in a human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as the Supreme Lord of all that be. Mogaisya moga karmano moga jnana vicheta saha raksasim asinim chaiva pakritim mohitim shrita. Those who are thus bewildered, they think the Lord is an ordinary man, right, are attracted by demonic and atheistic views, such as Mayavad philosophy. Right? In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their cultural knowledge are all defeated. So it's pretty serious becoming a Mayavadi. I mean, what do you mean pretty serious? It's the most serious thing, because you become an aparadi. You're the worse than the atheist, the regular atheist, worse than the atheist, because you specifically insult the personal form of the Lord by saying he has no form. So, the Lord regrets the fallen condition of men with little knowledge who deride him because he descends like a man into this world. Such poorly informed persons do not know the omnipotence of the Lord. So this is the whole thing. Look, he spent 3 pages now talking about the omnipotence of the Lord. Why? Because this is what differentiates a devotee from a non-devotee. Not only the devotee accepts that he's omnipotent, he knows in many specific ways why he's omnipotent, why he is so powerful or infinitely powerful. And he can go through a whole list of reasons why the Lord is omnipotent, as Prabhupada has done here and as this mantra is doing. Unless you're able to do this, you cannot be an effective preacher. You will be stumped by the karmis and the atheists, and especially the Mayavadis. Because they can quote scripture better than we can, but they give their own interpretation to it. Yeah. How do you know it's dumb? What? Islam.
Because they also don't believe in the form of God.
Well, I used to believe that too, but when I spoke to the Imam in Redmond, who came here, I said, you don't believe God has a form? He said, not exactly, he said. I said, really? He said, yes. We don't say it doesn't have a form, so we just say we don't know. See, he was educated. He was educated in the top Muslim university in the world, in Egypt. I forget the name, Alaska or something like that university. It's the top Muslim university. in the world. And he's come to the Philippines, but he went there and he studied, he got his degree, and he became an imam. So he gave the right answer. He said, we don't say it doesn't have a form. He said, we just say we don't know. Well, he's an impersonalist, of course, but he's educated, so he's not like the Mayavadi says, no, it doesn't have a form. So the Mayavadi is insulting God. And most Muslims will say it doesn't have a form, right? This guy, at least he had the sense to say, well, we just don't know, because nothing is explained by the Prophet Muhammad about the form of God. Well, he wanted to see the deities. Usually they won't walk upstairs. I mean, one Jewish guy came here. He was a Jewish rabbi. He refused to walk up into the temple. So I won't go up there. Because he knows that we have what he considers idols. Right? So in a Jewish temple or a synagogue or a Muslim mosque, they don't have any forms. They just have, the Muslims have, this little thing that is the direction of Mecca. So they all face that direction, and then they say their prayers. And then in the Jewish synagogue, they have some pretty columns, and it's very decorative, especially the more wealthy ones. But they don't have any forms there or pictures. Yeah, and have pictures of saints. Yeah. That's why they're called kafirs. So, such poorly informed persons do not know the omnipotence of the Lord. Thus, the Lord does not manifest himself in full to the mental speculators. He can be appreciated only in proportion to one's surrender to him. 4th chapter, 11th verse. Ye tamam prapadyante tam stataiva bhajamyaham mamavart manavartante manusya parthasarva saha. The fallen condition of the living entities is due entirely to forgetfulness of their relationship with God. So relationship means we are servant, he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the supreme worshipable person. We are the worshipper, right? In this mantra, as well as in many other Vedic mantras, it is clearly stated that the Lord has been supplying goods to the living entities from time immemorial. Nityo nityanam chaitanas chaitananam eko bahunam yo vidadati kamam. A living being desires something, and the Lord supplies the object of that desire in proportion to one's qualification. If a man wants to be a high court judge, he must acquire not only the necessary qualifications, but also the consent of the authority who can award the title of high court judge. The qualifications in themselves are insufficient for one to occupy the post. It must be awarded by some superior authority. Similarly, the Lord awards enjoyment to living entities in proportion to their qualifications, but good qualifications in themselves are not sufficient to enable one to receive awards. The mercy of the Lord is also required. So, see if you can find the verse that describes what we just read in this. Well, let's see. Maybe I'll help you. It is, well, Yeyatamam Prapadyante is one verse, but there's another important verse, Atapite, let's see, Atapite Deva Padambuja Dvaya. And Bhagavad Gita 4:24. My Lord, It's from the Srimad Bhagavatam 10:14-29. My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years. One can not understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, or his form, quality, or name simply by mental speculation or by discussing Vedic literature. One must understand him by, what, Bhakti Shastri? What does it say?
By devotional service.
Yes, it doesn't say by Bhakti Shastri. When one is fully engaged in Krishna consciousness, beginning by chanting the, what? Maha Mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram, Jai Shri Radha Nilamadhava Ki Jai. Then only can one understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Non-devotee impersonalists think that Krishna has a body made of this material nature, and that all his activities, his form, and everything are Maya. These impersonalists are known as Mayavadis. They do not know the ultimate truth. So, homework over the long weekends. I want each of you to explain the difference. Let's explain what the word formless means, what the word sukham means, and what the word akayam means, according to this mantra. Sukham and akayam. And the more you want to explain, the better, right? And we're giving verses that you can refer to from Bhagavad Gita, or paragraphs, or Srimad Bhagavatam verses. It's a big subject. You could write a whole book on this. In fact, I am writing a book about this. It takes a long time to write. So we referred to many different verses. Okay, we'll stop here unless somebody has a question. What? Yeah, you can read. Everyone can read. No. Why? Because they're going to be your notes, your study notes, right? For the test, the big test, whether you go back to Godhead or not. That's all right. Exuberance is encouraged, especially in this subject, because we're trying to understand the omnipotence of the Lord. That means his infinite power, right? There's no limit, right? Okay, so I can quote any bona fide shastra. All right. Okay, thank you very much. Hare Krishna.